if you have a medical problem, what do you usually do? You get a diagnosis before you decide a plan of action. When your car breaks down, you want a careful inspection before you sink thousands of rand to fix it. Similarly, in the cyber realm, you want to know what the scope of the problem is before we tailor an appropriate response. And the problem in this area is there's so much poor data and so much misunderstanding about cyber terminology that we don't understand the problem that we're trying to address, so we don't sort of fashion appropriate responses. So quickly, this is a science and technology organization, so let's start up with some stats. Everyone likes numbers, right? Especially Friday afternoon as the last presenter. And then we'll talk quickly, I'll unpack some cyber terms for you. It hasn't really been talked about yet today. And then last, I'll lay out what I've learned in my research and studying these issues as a way to address some of the cyber problems. Okay, let's get into the stats. 25 million internet users here in South Africa, 51.5% penetration rate, and that's currently second in sub-Saharan Africa behind Nigeria. According to the National Development Plan, we're going to have 100% broadband by 2020 in this country. We'll see if that happens. There's also an effort to bring free Wi-Fi, and actually this is starting to build up. We've seen it in 3 areas around this country. The project is Hizwe, and this organization is a nonprofit, and they think that within 5 years they're going to bring free Wi-Fi to 5% of South Africans in 5 years. Also, PricewaterhouseCoopers recently came out with a study that 32.3 million South Africans access the internet through mobile phones, okay? And there's only 2 million fixed lines, so nobody's using desktop computers anymore. Everyone's accessing the internet by their mobile phones. And then CNN recently came out with a report indicating that South Africa is Africa's largest smartphone market. So we know that a lot of people here are connected, right? It seems like South Africa's, in terms of the continent, is one of the more connected countries here in Africa. But the question is, you know, with all of these people connected, does that mean there are more potential victims to cybercrime? And there have been a number of studies, and I'm just going to quickly run through them. Norton, it's an antivirus company. They said that South Africa's got the 3rd highest number of cybercrime victims in the world behind China and Russia. The FBI found that South Africa's got the 6th most active cybercrime country. McAfee, another cybersecurity company, said that annually it costs the economy here 5.8 billion rand. And then an insurance company, and it's interesting, the cyber insurance market is starting to grow in this country. They said that 84% of South African adults have been victims of cybercrime. So that's a lot of stats, and I know it's Friday afternoon. But I just want to unpack some of those stats for you. And I'm a little bit troubled by the stats. Number one, because it paints a pretty bleak picture, right? But number two, this is a science and technology forum, and I hope you guys are in a position to verify these stats. As you know, if you see up there, most of these come from security companies, okay? And what's the motivation of a lot of security companies? They want to get some business, right? So I'm hoping, and the brigadier unfortunately has left. As you know, the SAPs, they put together an annual crime report, right? But they don't really collect cybercrime stats. The banking sector, they collect cybercrime stats. Of course, they want to know how many people are trying to steal their money, but they don't share those stats. I'd love to know, and if you guys know of a impartial entity that could do a survey of businesses, small and large, to get a true picture of what is the real problem here in South Africa that needs to be addressed. Okay. And also, another problem with the stats, as we talked about earlier, and I was questioning the prof, is that a lot of companies are reluctant to tell individuals that they've been hacked because it's going to hurt their underlying business. And individuals are reluctant to report crimes to the police because sometimes they're embarrassed that they've been duped. So now that we've got those stats out of the way, quickly I'm going to move to unpacking some terms. You know, we've thrown out a lot of cyber terms, right? There's cyber espionage, and that the actor usually, what distinguishes all of these terms are why are they attacking? What's the purpose for their attack? Okay, someone engaged in cyber espionage is looking to access intellectual property or secure information for political, military, or business strategic advantage. Someone engaged in cyber war, okay, that's some serious stuff, will want to damage an enemy's critical infrastructure, such as their power grid or water system. A cyber terrorist, on the other hand, seeks to do something like that, but also wants to intimidate the civilian population in order to further political, religious, or ideological goals. And then we have the hacktivists, and there's sort of an ongoing debate about what a hacktivist is. Some people have heard about Anonymous. Sometimes hacktivists are seen as those trying to use cyber attacks to affect social change or make political statements. Others claim that hacktivists are simply malicious criminal actors who ought to be prosecuted accordingly. And then we have the cyber criminals, and that's a lot of what we've talked about today. And cyber criminals often use cyber attacks in order to get a monetary reward. And obviously there's cyberbullying and child pornography and those aspects that don't necessarily have a monetary element. But most of cybercrime is about money. And so we need to know why are they attacking, and then who is attacking. And that's obviously the really hard thing to do in this space, is because the criminals are so, they can bounce around from server to server and mask their identity. With the Sony hack in the US a little while back, there was a big debate, but they finally pinned it on the North Koreans after a substantial amount of work to find out who was attacking. The bottom line is that all entities and all sectors are at risk. And it's not just where the money is, where the banks are. It's merchants, it's small businesses, it's healthcare providers. If you have personal information, if you have intellectual property, if you have something of value, you are going to be a target. Okay, now in the interest of time, let's talk about how do we approach this. And here in my research, I've come up with some policy recommendations. Number one, let's get some impartial statistics. Let's know what is the scope of the problem that we're trying to address. Number two, set forth a policy framework to give out roles and responsibilities. Here in South Africa, there was a policy framework in 2012, and it's still not made public. The Minister of State Security did say a couple weeks ago that he intends to make this public. We'll wait and see. But the bottom line is a policy framework would tell you what government agencies have what roles and responsibilities. So where does the buck stop, okay? In the US, for example, the Department of Justice is the lead on cybercrime. The Department of Defense deals with cyber war. And the Department of Homeland Security interfaces with the private sector and shares information and deals with critical infrastructure protection and threats to those critical infrastructure. You need legislation. Only 5 countries in all of Africa have cybercrime laws. The brigadier told me that South Africa is trying to put forth a cybercrime law. We need to define cybercrime. We need to have some penalties, because right now people are getting away with it because they're not sufficiently deterred. We need computer emergency response teams. These are 24/7 entities that will help your companies, your government, to identify the problem and help remediate it. We need coordination hubs. These are centers where all the relevant stakeholders, business, government, they get together and they share information. Obviously, you want to take into account privacy, and you have to have technical capability, but you need to have these coordination hubs so that the relevant people can get together and work together to counter these cyber threats. Training is critical. Law enforcement, as the brigadier said, they don't understand these things. So how are you supposed to prosecute them if you don't get it? So you gotta do training. And it's not just law enforcement, it's judges. If Your prosecutors bring a case to a court and the judge doesn't understand what a computer is and a tablet, you're in trouble. So the judges need training as well. And then building and attracting the workforce of the future. And this goes to my next slide, which is about education and cyber centers of excellence. The prof has got an excellent program at the University of Johannesburg. He has tremendous difficulty, he hasn't said it, trying to get funding. He has tremendous difficulty trying to replicate it around South Africa. I don't know the numbers, but I think he only has about 30 students. I'm not sure, you should talk to him, but the bottom line is we're not, in this country, I don't think there's the next generation of cyber professionals need to sort of start from the education system. Next, we go to public awareness campaigns. And everyone talked about this earlier, I don't need to rehash it, but the bottom line is that the individual is the weakest link in cyber defenses. In the United States, for example, they have a Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Some African countries have a Cybersecurity Awareness Day. It's a good start. Let's put it on the calendar. Let's have a discussion about it, and let's promote education and awareness about cyber threats. International coordination and cooperation, we didn't talk about this much today, but the African Union has recently come up with a framework, a convention. There's a Budapest Convention. Cyber incidents they're borderless. So you need cooperation from many countries. The Brigadier works with, as he mentioned in his presentation, a number of law enforcement entities from around the globe. So there needs to be mechanisms in place for international coordination and cooperation. We have a gentleman from CSIR, I believe. We need to promote research and development. You need to be one step ahead of the criminals because they're always innovating, finding loopholes, finding workarounds. So you need to have the good guys developing the tools to stay ahead of them. And then lastly, cybersecurity standards. In the States, we recently came up with a plan that it's a framework that sets forth certain standards that your business should follow to have basic cyber hygiene. It's a one-stop shop to go and say, okay, my business, I should be looking at this X, Y, and Z, and if I meet these certain cyber standards, there might be incentives. For example, you might have a lower premium on a cyber risk insurance. So this is something that could be thought about here in South Africa.